experiential focused hypnosis in order to guide a trance partner into the experience of shifting their physical form into an anthropomorphic form, such as a werewolf or werecat, alien, fantastical creature, or a supernatural imagined form or more, using guided imagery or guided suggestion rather than intensified imaginative involvement, all which work out with this particular topic we have today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, howdy. I'm Dr. David Phillips, and welcome to our webinar on furry hypnosis. What in the world is furry hypnosis? Well, it's hypnosis that's really furry. No, this is a webinar on transformational hypnosis for furries and plushies. Today we have an open and frank discussion, open Q&A. So if you have questions, you can indeed ask them on the YouTube live hangout page. Now, if you don't know where that is, you should be there. In terms of the system setup. I don't know if you're there or not, but we are trying to get things through. I do have a comment tracker set up, so if you make a comment on the YouTube page, that's live. This is for live folks. Later we'll have a replay up, and that's not going to be live. But you can comment, and hopefully I'll be able to see your comments. The Hangout system is kind of screwy sometimes, so please bear with us. We use it because a lot of folks already have YouTube accounts, and it's pretty nice and easy. Usually the streaming quality is the opposite of good. It's the equal of sucks much. But it still works out. I am hopefully, according to my system, I'm recording this, and so I'll be able to upload another version later, ideally. At least that's my hope there. We'll get all set up. Now, today we're going to be looking at using hypnosis for furry or plushies. Yes, we're going to be discussing about fetish-based hypnosis. If that's not your cup of tea, you really need to think about giving this one a miss. It's not our regular content, of course, but it is content worthwhile and something that we've revisited before. We're going to be discussing hypnotic morphic transformation or anthropomorphic hypnosis as a transformational sexual play. Essentially, we're going to be looking at how experiential hypnosis and ecstatic trance can be used to enhance anthropomorphic fantasy play within a fetish context. Now, if that isn't familiar to you, that's okay. We're going to go through some of that stuff. Now, we've done some shapeshifter kind of informational presentations before. I've got a webinar on the site, on my webpage already, on shapeshifting or hypnoshifting. Hypnoshifting, it was a webinar that has a lot of stuff. It's over 200 minutes of material, and probably the audio for this particular webinar, I'm probably going to just go ahead and slam that into that set for folks instead of having a separate product for this one. Just put them all together so that folks with an interest can get everything in that subject. Don't get it until after we've done that, and I'll set up a web page and help folks out in that way. I been playing with shape-shifting of various types for years. Mostly my interest has been more shamanic than fetish for that, but we do have some things on there. There's a guided imagery just simple shape-shifting that people can play with. It's an old one. It's from our very early guided imagery series. You can check that out. And then, of course, those of you who are interested in fantasy work with shape-shifting may already be familiar with our erotic sets. We have one male, one female. The male one is the Wolfen fantasy, where you are guided into hypnosis. You go into the woods and experience a lycanthropic change into werewolf form, and you meet a nice werecat and do stuff. The flip side of that, of course, is feline fantasy, which is essentially the same thing, except you're a woman becoming a werecat. Those are erotic fantasy recordings that we've done. I did those years ago as well. Probably need to do some new stuff. And of course, those of you who enjoy cosplay and shifting, we have the Cos Shifter oral or audio set, which is essentially you imagine yourself putting on a particular costume and you shift into whatever that costume is. That's related to today's topic, so you can check that out as well, or check out the hypno shifting webinar that we did before, which includes that particular session on anthropomorphic changing. Now, the hypno shifting series that we did before on anthropomorphic eroticotrans chemical transformation, which is not particularly just furries and plushies, but has some related things. It was essentially related to experiential focused hypnosis in order to guide a trance partner into the experience of shifting their physical form into an anthropomorphic form, such as a werewolf or werecat, alien, fantastical creature, or a supernatural imagined form, or more. Using guided imagery or guided suggestion, rather, and intensified imaginative involvement, all which work out with this particular topic we have today. Now, when we think of things like furries and plushies, we need to define our terms first, okay? And that's where we need to look in things like a furry versus a plushie. Now, plushies, some of you may be familiar with the term furry and less familiar with the term plushie. A plushie is a person who has a philia or a desire or fetish for plush toys. Okay, plushies can and often are individuals who essentially have a erotic attachment to plushie toys, often plush animals, but they don't have to be animals. They can be fantastical creatures or all sorts of things. In the fetish market, you can actually purchase specially designed plush animals or stuffed toys that are designed to have sex with. Those of you familiar with the hypno duels, which are hypnotic video challenges that I run on my site, they have the current one, which is about to end very soon, so if you're going to participate in that, please do so now. The current one's on voodoo hypnosis, and one of the videos I posted there, and the video is also on our introduction, getting started in erotic hypnosis post on the site. The left sidebar has a link that you can click on to get to that. There's a video there of which is a clip taken from the Japanese or adult film Aona, I believe number 3. There are 3 in the series, which is Aona is adult women, adult film star women, and office worker women. and essentially they have mass hypnosis. And one of the latest one has 50 women hypnotized for erotic hypnosis, and one of the gags they use in that is to bring in this huge stuffed teddy bear, a giant teddy bear, and then they bring in this guy, and he strips, he's naked, and he starts having sex with this giant bear, which is a plushy thing if there ever was one. But the interesting hypnotic twist to this is the experiences of the 50 girls watching, in that they feel what the bear feels. So as he's having sex with that big bear, they feel as if he's having sex with them. And it's a fascinating little scene. The longer video, of course, the full-length film, is much more explicit than any video on my site. But you can get that series, I believe, from SOD. I'm not sure. SOD is a Japanese porn company, Soft On Demand, which is an odd name for a porn company, if you ask me. But essentially, he's having sex with a giant bear. I'm not sure if that one was custom ordered or they just cut a hole in a teddy bear. But that is one thing you can do with hypnosis for plushies. Most plushies, though, are less interested in that type of an experience. Now, that's plushies. Just your stuffed toys, having sex with it. Guys, they put holes in their little dolls and they go to town that way. Women will either have dildo attachments, typically not, though. Essentially, women, when they learn to masturbate, often are just rubbing on pillows. They just rub on their toy, but that's plushy. Now, what's a furry? A furry is a person who has an attachment to anthropomorphic animals. Now, this can be very wide in terms of what they do and how they respond, in that they can also have aliens or fantasy creatures, but essentially it's an animal of some type that has an anthropomorphic form. And it's often eroticized. Now, the furry fantasy, as opposed to the plushy fantasy, most plushies, at least when we're talking about the mania or the philia, rather, they have an erotic attachment to have sex with their doll of some sort, where rather than to be a plushie. Whereas the furry has the fantasy of becoming an anthropomorphic animal, and there may be an erotic attachment to that as well. It's very important to distinguish this from bestiality or bestiality fantasies of having sex with an animal, or of becoming an animal. Typically, it's anthropomorphic. In shamanism, some people have shape-shifting activities. That's where I first experienced shape-shifting lore and shape-shifting activities. It's in a shamanistic context for myself. But typically, that's a little different, of becoming the raven or becoming the wolf and that sort of thing. They may have a intermediary stage of an anthropomorphic entity. I absolutely enjoy going into my wolf form and doing what I do in that, in the privacy of my own mind, so to speak. Others, they have another use for that sort of thing, but in those kind of shape-shifting activities, your experience may be very different. In furry fantasy, and it's important, while this hangout is specifically going to discuss things like sexualization of objects or sexual activity, not all plushies and not all furries are sexualized. It's important to distinguish. The fantasy doesn't have to be sexualized, and so you can use some of the hypnotic techniques to just engage that fantasy and experience the shift, so to speak. The hypno-shifting material is certainly appropriate for that, as is the material I'll be talking about a bit here on some approaches to this sort of thing. Okay, it's not always sexual. That tends to be where a lot of the media play goes, of course, because that just sells copy, and that's pretty much where I was headed for this discussion. But it doesn't have to be so. Cosplayers can use this stuff. The shifter audio session on my site doesn't have to have a sexual component, whereas the erotic and trans fantasy sessions are absolutely, obviously erotic, and you should only get those if you're over the age of majority, so please remember that. Okay, now what are some approaches to this stuff? For plushies, we can do all sorts of experiments and experiences. We want to engage folks in hypnosis, so it's important that you already know how to hypnotize folks. This session isn't teaching you all about hypnosis. That's well beyond the parameters of what we can do here. Right. This session is about just discussing hypnosis in that context. If you're already skilled in hypnosis, you can already engage in this material, you can already do this stuff. If you're not skilled in hypnosis, you want to get some core skills first. I've got on my site, I do have a core hypnosis skills course that you can take either online, or you can just get the videos and watch them on your own. And that's a good solid course in the skills you need to be a hypnotist. All right. Of course, my ultimate hypnotist package includes core skills and pretty much everything I've done in terms of video for erotic hypnosis. So that's a really big set. It's incredibly comprehensive. But if you're only interested in a very small area and you don't need all the other stuff, or don't want the massive and absolutely comprehensive instruction, you can just go with your core skills wherever you learn them, from me or from other competent, skilled hypnotists, and then move on to this material. Now, how can you engage the plushie stuff? Well, one thing you can do is what I just mentioned, which is you take your plushie and one person has sexual activities and another person experiences it. A lot of the plushies don't really they don't practice in public for some reason. And for very good reasons for that. I mean, you might have a special party with your special friends, and you might be up for that, and that's certainly something you can do, and I know folks who have done such things. But one thing you can do is to, if you have an interest, is to animate your special friend. Okay, so if you're using a plush doll, you can hypnotize yourself or the person you're working with into experiencing the sensations as if it's alive. That can change the temperature experience, that can change the flesh sensations experience, that can change your sensations in the experience. And that can take it to the next level in terms of your experience with that particular philia. You can also, and this is something that some furries, there is a crossover between some furries and plushies in terms of the costume play, where some folks will wear a full-on costume, often a faux fur costume with masks, and you add that to what we'll talk about in terms of shape-shifting, where you feel as if you become the costume you're wearing. And so you feel as if your body has changed and you have the sensations. And those furry plushies who engage in sex in costume can enhance their experience. And that crosses over into the shape-shifting furry fantasies and the shape-shifting furry hypnotic approaches. That let's go ahead and get into those. You can have all sorts of things you can play with in that term. Okay, now how do you do shape-shifting? You do that a number of ways. We can have attachment and transformation. You can just simply, boom, do it. Or you can have a talisman. Okay, there's a session out there somewhere that I did. I did a whole series actually for dragon transformations that engaged a person had a special necklace, a talisman that they wore. Now this is not it, of course. This is mine. This is the goddess Freya and her stone and her two companion cats. So that's Beagle and Treagle, her cats. In terms of a talisman, you can have a talisman that you wear, and then when you wear it, you have the sensations. Some folks who have furry fantasies, they like that added bit of a supernatural or magical feel to it. And so some people will have rings that they wear, and so if they turn it in a special way, they feel the transformation. You know, if you had an old, maybe a high school class ring or something, you could have that on your old ring finger. You have it on the hair, and then what you do is you just turn that sucker inside, and that sets off a trigger for your transformation. Or you can just rub it, and then close your eyes and feel the transformation. Obviously, we can do this through straight suggestion as well. Boom, you're hypnotized. Whatever approach you use to get folks into a genuine hypnotic state, you use that, and then you give the suggestions to experience the shift. Okay, and the shift is essentially guiding a person into experiencing their body changing into their were form, their anthropomorphic animal form, or full animal form if that's the fantasy. But for our purposes, since it's furry fantasy, furry hypnosis, anthropomorphic. And so it's the classic humanoid were creature, you know, the werewolf who stands and has claws, but they're hand claws, not full-on limbs of a wolf, and that sort of thing. And so that experience, what you can do is you use an intensification of their imaginative involvement so they experience it in a way that you can actually start feeling the hair beginning to grow. So humans have hair. We don't have fur, but you give a suggestion so that this hair, okay, if you're a hairy person, it's going to be even more visceral. But imagine the hair begins to grow, and whether you can do this with the eyes open or eyes closed. Many people, they get into the fantasy more if their eyes are closed because they're not distracted by other things they see. But I've done this with eyes open with folks where they can actually see the hair getting longer and turning into fur. Typically, the fur color matches their hair color. Not always. Some folks like to shift that as they transform either. So we start feeling the hair and the fur, and then you start feeling the shift in the limbs. And so they may experience lengthening or shortening of their limbs. They may feel their fingers becoming claws, the fingernails coming out into claws, etc. They may even experience, and you can give the suggestion directly, experience a shift in the structure of the jaw and the skull. And so it's just like those scary movies where you see the snout coming out and the fangs coming out. Of course, if they've seen a lot of those scary movies, you might give a writer's suggestion. If you're familiar with my guided imagery work, you know that I always push the idea of writer's suggestions, which are positive words that give us the suggestion that the experience is pleasant. Okay, don't go around saying it doesn't hurt. You don't feel the excruciating pain of the transformation. Rather, and it's a simple, pleasant experience as you feel that wonderful sensation of your jaw shifting location, of your snout beginning to extend into that beautiful, beautiful anthropomorphic shape of your furry identity. You may even begin to feel your teeth shifting location and length as your fangs begin to elongate pleasantly and comfortably within your jaw and mouth. You may begin to feel that wonderful sensation as you breathe in and breathe out through your anthropomorphic mouth. Your furry experience of this identity begins to grow and feel oh so wonderful. That's right, you're doing perfectly. Oh yeah. You may even begin to feel that wonderful sensation as your buttocks shift their center of gravity and your tail begins to grow. And as your tail grows, that's right, go ahead and feel your tailbone shift as the tail elongates and shifts and feels oh so interesting. And then shift that, and you shift to other locations. And I like to do a little thing. We're going to talk about erotic trends, so nice little thing you can do is also, and this is in my the feline fantasy piece that I did. Well, it's in the wolfen fantasy as well, but of the feline character, the werecat. The suggestion that's in that audio recording is that you begin to feel as if you're a cat in heat. You're a cat, a werecat in heat, and just feel your tail move and your buttocks move as you're open and ready. And oh, you need it oh so much. Oh yeah. And you do a heat suggestion. And this is dudes, ladies. This is a lot of fun with an appropriate consenting adult partner, and you can just watch how the back just arches, the buttocks come up, and it's like, come on, get to it, I'm ready. And of course, if you're doing so feline, you can play with that, and if you're doing canine or lupine, you can also have some interesting things. And if you're with an appropriate consenting adult partner and you really want to get to it, you can also engage in coitus in anthropomorphic form. That's right, folks, you can have sex as a furry, an anthropomorphic animal, having sex with your appropriate partner, and you feel it as if your body has changed. And of course, if you're doing the lupine thing or the canine thing or whatever animal you're doing, you can experience it so that, for instance, that the penis of the anthropomorphic wolf or canine or dog, that it has the bulge. And so you can just get in there, and the person you're with can experience as if they feel that knot. The knot at the base of the penis for a dog or a wolf is designed to lock in Okay, and so it bulges out so that the penis doesn't slip out during ejaculation. So it fills the vagina with the semen, and so you can experience that. So the shape shift of the penis itself, yes, if you've got someone you're working with and you've got experiential hypnosis states, they can indeed experience that shift, that change in penis shape and size. Now I've got a video on penis, or hypnotic penis tricks, where I discussed a little trick of having a person, when you're in hypnosis and you're having sex, of the person, male or female, but whomever is on the receiving end of the penis, they can experience the penis as if it's getting larger. And of course with anthropomorphic erotica trance, you can do that as well. You can change things. Now there are certain anthropomorphic changes I would suggest not making. For instance, some penises have hooks or barbs on them. So they go in and they hook in so they don't dislodge. And they're kind of the opposite of a pleasant experience. So if you have a furry fantasy of becoming that type of creature, I might modify the suggestion so that the anthro part of that suggestion is you got more anthro or human penis than animal penis, because some of those penises ain't friendly. You really don't want a duck penis, for instance. I guess you could. Maybe you want a duck penis. A duck penis is like a corkscrew. That could be a very interesting experience, I suppose. It could also be inconvenient. But once again, what did I say? I said give writers suggestions. Writers suggestions to make it comfortable and pleasing and pleasant. And that's important if you do anything with size suggestions, or things like that. So if your anthropomorphic form, your furry identity, so to speak, is to be a donkey man, I'm the if my suggestion or identity is to be the donkey guy, and I do indeed want that donkey penis. Here's the donkey penis. Don, 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 don. If that's my, I just did donkey dick on YouTube. If that's my fantasy, and I have an appropriate consenting adult partner who is interested in that fantasy, that's all well and good. But it can also be a bit problematic. So you're going to want to be careful about making it too large for the receiver. So make sure the person you're working with, if you have one person, they experience the male fix, and it can be female too. So a woman can experience an anthropomorphic form that is male, and a man can experience an anthropomorphic form that is female. That's perfectly possible with hypnosis. Those of us who do erotic hypnosis suggestions and erotic hypnosis stage shows, sometimes we do a little thing of shifting body parts around. And I can take your penis and shift it to your thumb. You've seen my happy finger videos where the person is playing around with their happy finger, and sometimes they experience that in an eroticized fashion. Or you can just take their sexual organs and stick them on their forehead. There are lots of funny videos of people playing with their penis up here, or their clitoris, or vagina, I'm sorry, with their little clitoris button there. Or you can shift it, okay? And so you can just tell a woman that she has a penis and start experiencing sex as a man with her penis, or tell a man that he's misplaced his penis, he's now got a clitoris and vagina, and go ahead and experience that. And they perceive their sexual experience very differently. And that can be a pretty awesome thing to happen. It can be also pretty weird if they're not into that. And so make sure you have consent. If you're going to have someone, anyone, experience as if they're having sex with Don the Donkey Dick, you got to make sure that they feel that in a comfortable way. Come on. This is consenting adult stuff. This is stuff that you play with folks who really want to do that sort of thing. And so you want it to be comfortable for them. You want them to enjoy the experience. And so let's get to it and do it in a way that's appropriate and pleasurable for them. If someone's not a size queen when it comes to penises that they enjoy, don't give them that fantasy unless you have agreed to do it previously. And of course, those writer's suggestions, positive writer's suggestions, allows you to really get in there and make things pleasant and enjoyable. And that's a really big goal here, folks, is making things pleasant and enjoyable. So we talked a little bit about just using a talisman of either like a talisman you wear, a special necklace. For instance, if my identity is a cat, I wear a feline one. If it's lupine, I really like wolves. Wolves are awesome. Then I would have something with a wolf theme to it, or a dragon, or whatever your furry identity is. Or I might have a special ring or bracelet, or I might have some special coat that I put on. Lots and lots of wonderful myths and legends about putting on a special coat. Freya, I mentioned Freya, there she is. Freya has a special cloak that she can put on and she becomes a bird. She can fly, and well, essentially she puts it on and she transforms. Of course, she's also doing saving in that respect, a form of trance magic. So it's not clear. The Eddas seem to indicate that she physically transforms, and certainly when Loki stole her, borrowed her cloak, he was transforming. But it could also just be a metaphor for a psychological experience. That's up to your belief system, however you want to see that. But just get yourself a nice coat, or that you put on around your shoulders, and as you got it around your shoulders, you transform into that creature. In terms of the erotic and trance stuff, though, that means you're going to have to pay attention to how it's attached. Because sometimes when you're doing stuff in a sexual way, clothes get misplaced, and you could be going at it in your feline form, and your cloak falls off, and suddenly, ooh, I'm human again. So be aware of that. Whatever floats your boat. The Cause Shifter audio session I have on my site does indeed deal with just costume bits. Now, some of you are indeed furries, and you go it full on. I like cosplay. Cosplay is, so I live in Taiwan. I live in Asia. And in Asia, there's quite a few conventions for cosplayers, folks who like science fiction, anime, manga, and they dress up as their favorite characters. It's costume stuff. But you can, some conventions for furries have costumes, and folks have elaborate, absolutely beautiful costumes for their furry identities. Check out on YouTube some of the magnificent work of folks who have full-on fur costumes and anthropomorphic heads that they wear, masks that really get into it. Others do body paint for theirs, and others, they don't have the funding or the skill to do really elaborate stuff, so they just do a little bit of things. But if you're into that, you can set yourself a nice anchor so that when I put on my puppy costume, when I place everything on, I can slowly start feeling the shift. And then when if I have a full head, I put my head on, and then I breathe in. As I breathe out, I can feel the body. So I breathe in the essence of the animal. And as I breathe out, I feel the shift begin. 3 or 4 breaths and my body begins shifting into animal form. I want to break it, and you can also have your identity shift as you do that. Your identity shifts as you do that. So as you shift into animal anthropomorphic form, your identity also shifts, and your identity becomes deep trance identification. Absolutely wonderful. I do a form of deep trance identification with our vicarious experience stuff, where you shift your awareness and experience for physical skill sets, so physical experiences. Deep trance identification is also a psychological shift. So you become another person. My trance acting work, that's something I teach actors for becoming their character. And that can shift into the cosplay or the furry play kind of convention activities, if that's what floats your boat. And sometimes things float the boat pretty well, don't they? Now, of course, many of the things I've been talking about today aren't going to be appropriate for everyone. Absolutely not. And that's okay. If it's not for you, it doesn't have to be. Okay? This is about stuff for consenting adults in appropriate context. If your fantasy is furry, you can play this way. If your fantasy is plushy, you can play this way. You can get into this kind of activity, this kind of experience. But if that's not what floats your boat, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to do this kind of stuff. You can do other things. When I teach erotic hypnosis, or when I teach hypnosis or ecstatic trance for metaphysical approaches, I discuss this type of stuff only as an example of some of the things you can do. There's a whole lot of stuff you can do. And there's a lot of folks who have different fantasies or different fetishes out there for which erotic hypnosis can supplement and enhance their experience for informed, consenting adults. Okay? That's important. Now, I've got a lot of stuff on my website that can help folks in this regard. Some of it's not specific to this, some of it is. You can troll around on the site, check out what you like, what you don't like. I hope today's been at least a bit informative. You can play with it. A very simple thing you can do with furries is this. Hypnotize them and then teach them to re-enter hypnosis, or teach yourself how to re-enter hypnosis and then use a trigger. First, use a full-on session where you go through the experience of shifting. Okay. In hypnosis. You'll post-hypnotic suggestion while in hypnosis after you've compounded that shift suggestion. Post-hypnotic suggestion is then whenever you blank. Place your amulet upon your neck. Shift the location of your ring. You turn your ring so it's the jewel on the inside, or you just rub your ring in a special way. Or place your costume on, or just center yourself, breathe in, and as you breathe out, close your eyes and feel the transformation begin. And with 3 to 5 deep breaths, you feel different parts of your body shift, and you feel yourself become your furry identity, and feel the sensation of the change. really feel as if you have changed. And then when you're done, you pop out. Okay? Or take off the mask, or turn the ring back around, or remove the cloak, or whatever. So you can shift your experience in interesting ways. Give that post-hypnotic, compound that, link it to the suggestion that each time you do this sort of thing, it becomes more effective, more powerful, and more imaginatively intensified. Ideally, throw in all the senses: smell, hearing, sound, taste, touch, everything. How they see the world, so that they can become their furry identity. And really play with that, really seriously. Have some fun with it, because it can be very engaging for a lot of folks. And then pop them out of hypnosis, emerge them. While they're in that amorphous zone between being emerged from hypnosis and full alertness, there's always a few minutes of suggestibility there. And at that point, just have them test the triggers. And so say, okay, now show me. And have them do whatever they're supposed to do in order to engage the experience. While they're doing it, compound the suggestion, that is, reinforce them, just stronger and more powerful. Notice how good it feels. And they pop out, do it again 3 to 5 times. You test, you're reinforcing, not testing, you're reinforcing the triggers. Okay? And always make sure they know that each time they do it, it becomes more powerfully effective, so that the experience is both more positive and more powerful for them. That's a good thing. Do that. Okay? Okay then. Meow, woof, whatever. Have that sensation for them. Alright? I hope that's fairly clear. I know I had a little rambling in there. I apologize for the late start. Hopefully most folks have been able to follow along. And so there you go. This has been a webinar. We have one about once a month. We have one once a month. And that's a longer piece in discussion. Obviously, I had a few questions as we were going, and I kind of tried to throw those out. And so sometimes we get a little off track. I think today we've got most of the material we wanted to cover, so we seem to be good for today. If you have suggestions or comments or queries, or you just want to ask about another issue, you can feel free to message me or comment on the videos. And I mean, I have a lot of experience in a lot of stuff, and so I'm happy to do a webinar or a discussion about many different topics. So feel free to ask. If I don't know about it, I'll see if I can research and help you out. If I can't help you, I'll try to find a reference for you. But for the most part, I do a lot of research in this stuff for many applications, not just this kind of stuff or the erotic stuff, but lots of things. I do a lot of stuff because I'm a lot of stuff doing guy. And so go ahead, feel free, interact with us. Let us know which of the webinars you have found most valuable for you, and we'll try to keep helping you. That's really what we want to do. My goal is to help you be the sort of person or hypnotist you want to be. Every week we have a whole series of stuff. On Tuesdays I cover the news, and sometimes I rant. I do a lot of ranting. I'm a rant sort of guy sometimes, but I also do a lot of news stuff. And then Wednesdays, that's question time. Ask me your questions. Go ahead and comment and ask questions, and maybe I'll make a video answering your question. If I can answer, I'll try to help. And of course, Thursday's trance time. That's where I guide you through a trance experience. Instead of talking about it, we actually do it. Please, please, please be sure to click subscribe on our YouTube channel so that you can get notices when we have new experiences or videos coming up in the regular series, or the once in a while videos that I post every once in a while. And of course, go to my website and check that stuff out, because you can get information on when we have a new webinar or new activities, and there's a whole lot of stuff there. I hope today has been helpful to you. I've enjoyed seeing some of the comments and interacting with you, and I look forward to seeing you again. For now, though, and this is very important, I'd like you to, this is Dr. Brian David Phillips saying, live, trance, and prosper. Furry on, dude. Bye-bye.